Well, the most famous rugby player the world's ever seen was a South Auckland boy who overcame adversity to become a superstar. He was also loved for his touching humility.
Jonah Lomu was just 20 when he forged his own chapter in rugby history.
Lomu!
The youngster from South Auckland's Wesley College stamped his arrival on the world stage in emphatic style, going on to become the first global superstar of the game.
His bursting onto the international stage took the game to another level and was probably an important spark for the game getting the opportunity to go fully professional, because what he did at the 95 World Cup certainly turned some heads.
He could run around, you could run over the top of you, but off the field, as soon as that final whistle sort of blew, the softest handshake, big smile on his face.
The star winger's time at the top was limited. Diagnosed with chronic kidney illness in his prime, the illness eventually ended Lomu's on-field career. He needed a kidney transplant by the time he was 30. But the end of rugby didn't mean the end of his high-profile lifestyle. He was married 3 times and worked tirelessly as a global ambassador for sport, kidney disease and children's charities. His charity work in London last month saw him dining with the Prime Minister.
To be blunt, I'm absolutely shocked, because in the entire dinner I had with him, he said to me, actually, from a health perspective, he was feeling better than he had for a very long period of time.
When you think about his career now in full retrospect, it's like a shooting star. It's like that Michael Jackson song, Gone Too Soon.
So much left to cherish. Jonah Lomu is survived by his wife and 2 young sons.
Now, we'll be linking up with the live broadcast, the host broadcast for Jonah Lomu's memorial service any second now. We've just been told who the pallbearers here today will be. Jerome Kano, Manu Vatuvei, Frank Bunce, John Mayhew, Ronnie Clark, Joelle Vinderi, Dylan Mika and Michael Jones. So, Andrew, it's a mix of All Black eras, but with Manu Vatuvei, a nod also to rugby league.
Former Dr. John Mayhew from the All Blacks, who was so close to Jonah during all of his illness, and some of his closest mates for the Blues and the All Blacks. A great touch.
All right, well, the service here at Eden Park now is about to start, so let's join it live.
Public farewell for a man who changed the game, a man much loved, much admired, a man who thrilled us, who inspired us, and who will continue to inspire us. Kia ora, malo elele, and welcome to Eden Park in Auckland, where in front of a crowd of over 10,000 people from all walks of life, some of whom have travelled a great distance, the life of Jonah Lomu will be celebrated and his loss mourned. Soon we will hear from those closest to Jonah, people who helped shape his remarkable life. We will hear tributes in music, in word and in action, and he will be saluted by many of his teammates. To host this very special memorial service, John Campbell.
Whakatau mai rā, ngā manere, whakatau mai rā. Whakatau matatapu, hara mai rā.
E whakarongo. Whakarongo ki te tangi o te manu e karanga nei e tū ia. Tū e runga, tū e raro, tū e roto, tū e waho. Karango te pō, karango te ao. E ngā reo, e ngā mana, e mātā waka, e karangaranga maha. Tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou ki te whakatau. I rungi i tēnei whenua, i tēnei wā. Nō reira hara mai, e whakatau mai. A te whānau e Jonah, tēnei mihi aroa kia koutou. Kei te hinga koe, o Jonah. E tino mamai te kōta ngā kau. E tangi te kōta ngā kau ia mātau i tai mai. Kei te hinga o Jonah. Anō reira, me ngā whānau, me ngā whanaunga, hoki koutou, te public, a tēnei mihi aroa kia koutou, kei te hara mai, ki te manakitia, te kaupapa i mui tēnei rā. Anō reira, e poto mihi tēnei i tēnei wā, ngā nui te mihi atu kia koutou, nō reira tēnā koutou, a tēnā tātou katoa. What is this wind that blows yonder? It is the northwest wind that blows to our shores this peaceful taumata. Maybe I shall place my handsome carved post on the shores of the Waitemata, and then our dreams will be fulfilled. E hoa, e Jonah, haere, haere, haere. Haere ki te kāinga tūturu, haere ki te moingaro, no reira, a te rangatire Jonah. Tino hari te kōta ngā kau, e hara mai Ngāti Whātua ki te kia koe, te korero I tai mai. Nō reira tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā hui hui mai tātou katoa. Kia ora.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, could you please remain standing for a few moments longer for the national anthem performed by the Auckland Gospel Choir and hopefully also by you. And first for a prayer by Merv Quirk, Nadine Lomu's dad and Jonah's loving father-in-law.
Our most gracious, kind and eternal Heavenly Father, we thy children gather here today at the commencement of a memorial service for our dearly beloved son, father, wonderful husband and great friend. We ask thee, Father, for thy blessings to be upon us at this time, that all the hearts Jonah has touched who are here and around the world, that they may feel of thy Spirit and the love that Jonah has for everyone. We're grateful for all of those who have made this production and this service possible. We ask you to bless them as we proceed through it, Father, that it will go well, that the spirit and the message, the intent of love in our hearts will be manifest to the world. We're grateful for these blessings. We ask Thee to watch over us and to stay the elements so that we're able to enjoy this time of respect to our dear son. I ask these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Merv. Thank you to the Auckland Gospel Choir and to you, ladies and gentlemen. You may now be seated. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, family, welcome. I ngā uri o ngā aweko, I ngā heru hapainga, I ngā iwi mana taki o Tamaki Makaurau, Tamaki Heringa Waka. Me ngā iwi e here ne e whakakotahi ne tēnei rā. Haere mai te kingitanga, te iwi o Tainui, tēnā koutou. Mangawhau, te mangatapu, e tūmaira. Te moana o Waitemata, e hora mai rā. Nā iwi o te motu, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Jonah, e te hau tipua, e te manu topa, e hoa, e Jonah takato. Welcome everyone. Welcome to our friend Jonah. To people watching on TV and listening on the radio or the internet, wherever you are in the country and the world, welcome. To people watching on TV, it's very special to have you here where Jonah played. To everyone here at Eden Park, where Jonah played so many games for the All Blacks, for the Blues, for the Hurricanes, for Counties Manukau and more, with many of you watching, I suspect, leaping to your feet with possibility and excitement every time he got the ball, welcome. Welcome. To the politicians, dignitaries and officials who've come in such numbers to offer your support, welcome to you all. To the people who've worked so hard to make today happen, welcome. To the Tongan community, who are so very proud of Jonah and who love him so much, malo e lele, malo au pito, whakaapa atu, malo e mea mai. Greetings, thank you, and respectfully welcome. To people from Jonah's rugby family, including the entire Blues squad who are here today, welcome. To the Warriors, their entire squad is also here today, welcome. To former schoolmates, teammates, from school to Weymouth and on, to all his coaches, managers and selectors, to All Blacks past and present. We saw them amongst the pallbearers. To great opponents like George Gregan and Tim Horan from the Wallabies, who admired Jonah so much on and off the field that they have travelled to be here today. And to Bernard Lapasse, the chairman of World Rugby, who has travelled such a long way to be here, welcome. To Jonah's friends, former schoolmates, and all who knew and loved him, welcome. To Jonah's family, his mum, Heppy, his brothers John and Noah, his sisters Sela and Irene, and everyone in the Lomu family, welcome. And to Nadine, Jonah's wife, and their two beautiful boys sitting on either side of her, Brayley and Darrell, and everyone in the Quirk family, welcome. Thank you for sharing your Jonah with us one last time. We all feel such loss today, but the most immense and personal loss is yours. And our love is with you, and we hope it helps you through the heartbreak of these terribly sad days. Darrell and Brayley, these are just some of the people who loved your dad. That's how amazing he was. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being here. Now, of course, not everyone who wanted to be here could be here today. Bill English is attending as acting Prime Minister, but John Key has been at CHOGM in Malta and is now at the Climate Summit talks in Paris. And because he couldn't be here in person, he has sent this message for Jonah's family and for all who feel Jonah's loss.
It's a privilege to pay tribute to Jonah today. He meant so much to his family, to his community, to his former teammates and to his fans here in New Zealand and overseas. Everyone recognised Jonah as an outstanding rugby player. He was respected and admired all around the world, and rightly so. But it was his actions off the field that I will remember most fondly. His sportsmanship was unwavering. I was at the World Cup in 1999 when the All Blacks lost the semi-final to France. Despite his deep disappointment, Jonah remained on the field until he'd shaken the hand of every single French player. And more often than not, he was the last player standing on the sideline signing autographs for young fans. That was Jonah. He was also very generous. Jonah made a significant contribution to a great many charities and gave time to countless people who needed a helping hand or even just a friendly chat. I was privileged to catch up with Jonah and Nadine and the boys just before the World Cup in London last month. He was in good spirits and he told me about his plans to dedicate the rest of his life to raising money for charity. Jonah's speech at this fundraising dinner was very emotional. I couldn't help but be moved by the way Jonah talked of fighting his illness and the love he had for his family. He wanted to make a real difference to people's lives, and he certainly did that. Like all New Zealanders, I was extremely shocked and saddened by the news of Jonah's untimely death. He remains an inspiration to a whole generation of young Polynesian men. He proved that you can come from anywhere in New Zealand and from any background and make it to the very top. Each of us will have our own fond memories of Jonah. We can all take time to reflect on them today as we mourn his passing. But my thoughts are with Nadine and his two young boys and all of his family and friends. Go well, Jonah. Rest in peace.
The Prime Minister, thank you. I was in Australia when news of Jonah's loss broke, and I turned on the radio in the car hoping to hear something, not sure whether I would or not, but I did hear about Jonah so much. It was very moving to listen to Australia mourn for Jonah. And what I realised, Jonah, is that you transcended geography, that everywhere people knew the game of rugby, and in many places where they didn't, you were known and admired and loved. Johnny Wilkinson, just one person, tweeted how devastated he was. That one tweet was retweeted 6,500 times. Former Wallaby Tim Horan, who we're honoured to have with us today, wrote, and I quote, "You didn't even have to follow rugby to know who he was. I recall going on holiday to the USA after the 1995 World Cup. I was speaking to one of the locals who said to me, 'I don't know anything about your game, but man, that Jonah Lomu is something.'" And he was something, Tim, something special. And in the days since he died, this is some of the reaction to his loss.
New Zealand rugby legend Jonah Lomu has died.
The All Blacks icon Jonah Lomu has died unexpectedly.
The rugby world is in mourning after the death of Jonah Lomu.
Jonah Lomu was rugby union's first global megastar.
Memories are still fresh in the mind of the legend that was Jonah Lomu.
Tributes have been pouring in from around the world.
Thousands are using social media to express their grief.
But what I want to do now is pay tribute to one of the greatest athletes of all time who passed away this week in such tragic circumstances. Superstar is an overused word, but this man was a giant. And he will be so sadly missed. So I want to dedicate the song to Jonah Lomu and his family. And the stars will twinkle a lot brighter now that he's up there.
That's some of how the world saw Jonah. Just some of how the world saw him. And I can see his family in the front row. Happy, Nadine, the boys, Mervyn, watching with pride and sadness. There's so much to be proud of. And the reason for that in part is that Jonah did something no one in rugby had ever done before. Rugby had many great players before Jonah, but their greatness was known where rugby was known. The Sanzar Nations, the Six Nations, the South Pacific, Argentina, rugby's tight and traditional family. Then, at the World Cup in 1995, that semi-final against England, when even the brilliant Keith Quinn was so famously and so aptly lost for words, we all were. Jonah took the game we love to people who didn't even know what rugby was. As so many people have pointed out, he was rugby's first truly global superstar. And to honour that, having come all the way from the great city of Paris to be with us, Paris, a city that is very much in our hearts at the moment, is the chairman of World Rugby, a Frenchman who, like so many French people, adored Jonah, Bernard Lapasset.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Jonah Lomu was a giant. As a rugby player, he was a towering presence in any team, capable of running around over or even through any opponent, but as well as being a giant in the game, he was a giant of the game, a true rugby icon and the sport first real superstar. On behalf of World Rugby, I wish to pass on the condolences of the global rugby family to his friends, family and countrymen here in New Zealand. He will be greatly missed and fondly remembered. Jonah inspired millions around the world with his incredible try-scoring exploits of power and pace. His contribution to rugby cannot be overstated. It terrified the defences and thrilled spectators with a brand of running rugby that had never been seen before at the highest level. Through his sheer brilliance and love of the game, he brought much joy to the rugby family and took our sport to a new level of profile. His impact on Rugby World Cup 1995 in particular was profound. He burst onto the scene with an energy, passion and intensity, the like of which had never before been witnessed. New Zealand didn't win it. He was nominated the player of the tournament, scoring 7 tries in 5 matches, and in the process, changing the way people thought about wingers. He was as big and brave at the best number 8, but with the hands, pace and sidestep of the most elusive number 11. It was a devastating combination. When I think of that amazing tournament in South Africa some 20 years ago, I think mostly of 2 people, off the field I think of Nelson Mandela, who used the Rugby World Cup to help repair a damaged nation. And on the field, I think of Jonah Lomu. Both men inspired millions around the world who marveled at their strength, their charisma, and their passion. And both men had an aura of decency that touched people beyond the nation they represented or the sport they played. Even after hanging up his boots, Jonah continuing to promote and support the sports he loved, with as much passion, vigor, and dedication as it's channeled into playing. He gave his full support and considerable time to Rugby 7's Olympic Games campaign, presenting a compelling argument at the decisive International Olympic Committee session in Copenhagen in 2009. It was at that time we really saw his generosity of spirit, as he believed that rugby would benefit greatly from being part of that Olympic family. He put in a huge amount of his time and thought to make sure his presentation was as powerful and meaningful as possible. And he was an important part of that delegation to the IOC. Ultimately, our successful application for rugby to return to the Summer Olympic program in 2016 was in no small part down to his contribution and powers of persuasion. Next year, the Olympics will give the sports an enormous boost all over the world. It is a great shame that he will not now be there in Rio de Janeiro to witness what will be an historic occasion for our sport. I know that one of the things Jonah loved most about rugby was its ability to bring people together in a spirit of camaraderie and respect. Wherever he played in the world, he would always keep in touch with former teammates and people he met along the way. I know he made many friends during his time in Cardiff and Marseille, and he kept those people and his heart always. Indeed, just a few days before he passed away, he took time to send a message of solidarity to the French people after the terrorist attack that shocked the nation. Sois fort, vive la France, be strong, he wrote, long live France. Yes, he was a giant man, and he leaves a giant space in rugby and in the life of his friends and family members. But his legacy of humanity, perseverance, and integrity lives on, and he will forever be a big part of rugby's story. Thank you. Thank you for all, Jonah.
Bernard Lapasse. Bernard, it is such a tough time in the life of your country. Thank you for coming and being here with us today, and thank you for those beautiful and true words about Jonah on behalf of World Rugby. Rugby is family, and we have all lost one of our favourite sons. Hello. Speaking of family, Jonah was born in Pukekohe, but he was a Mangere boy and proud of it. And he attended Favona Primary School, where he won all the races and was distinguished by his kindness as well as his athletic ability. And Favona is very proud of Jonah and very sad about his passing. And this is the children of Favona School behind me here. Hello, welcome. So lovely to see you all. And they are going to sing a special tribute song for Jonah. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonah School, Favona Primary School.
pupils and the past and present teachers of Avona Primary School in Mangere are very proud, Jonah, to say that you were one of us, a true Mangere boy. Avona School won the inter-school sports back in the 80s because you ran further and faster, you jumped higher, you jumped longer, and you threw further than any other athlete. You grew into a fine man, a true sportsman, a person who is there for others. You are a legend.
You showed us to follow our dreams, never give up and just believe. You showed us to always give it your all. Avona, we will always stand tall. Turn up, we wish you
Oh, Avona Primary School, that was fantastic. Thank you. Absolutely beautiful. Jonah would be so proud of that and think you were so clever. He would have loved it. Lovely work, Avona. Thank you. You wonderful kids. Thank you. Jonah's college was Wesley at Pairata, Nepukakohi. Hepi believed it would be the making of him. And you were right, Hepi. It's the country's oldest registered secondary school, and Jonah is a special part of its rich history. He's there on the school's webpage, front and centre now, pride of place with love. Later the school will do a haka for Jonah, which will be very special indeed. But now a man who was 3 years ahead of Jonah at school. In case the cameras didn't catch that, was a beautiful round of applause for Avona School as they returned to their seats. It was a lovely thing to do. But now a man who was 3 years ahead of Jonah at Wesley College, who coached and mentored and encouraged him, and who was credited by Jonah himself as being a father figure. What a beautiful way to be described. Chris Grinzer, welcome.
Kia ora, koutou katoa, malo elelei, talofa lava, nisambula vanaka. Good afternoon, everyone. The story I will share with you today relates to Jonah's early high school years. In 1989, I was deputy principal at Wesley College. When Jonah was enrolled by his mother, Hepi, he was 13 years old. On his enrolment, it is true to say that Jonah had something of a troubled background and some issues with discipline and anger. He arrived with a reputation that had nothing to do with sport. And the two of us certainly had a number of conversations over those first couple of years of his time at Wesley. The Wesley College environment, however, soon embraced Jonah, and he found ways to take on a more positive and constructive view of life. He certainly arrived with a physical presence and a sporting talent of immense potential. That potential was demonstrated in his very first weeks at the school in 1989, when in the school's Junior Athletics Championships, Jonah won 10 of the 13 individual athletic events. He chose not to enter the 800 and the 1500 metres, and those who knew Jonah will know why. He also chose not to enter the cricket ball throw,
and that really surprised me, as I have seen him throw a rugby ball from halfway over and through the goalpost at the end of the field. At this time, the talk around school was that Jonah Lomu could become New Zealand's next great decathlete. As winter approached, Jonah asked me for dispensation to play league, and with an eye to the future, I made an arrangement with Jonah to allow him to continue to play league for his club in Auckland, provided he gave rugby a go in his fourth form year. This was the first and only time during my years at Wesley where I allowed this to happen for some reason. I was also at this time the first 15 coach, and I was confident that the rugby culture at Wesley College would soon capture Jonah's interest. I also made sure that Jonah was with the school when our first 15 played in the top 4 of the National Schools Rugby Championships in Pukekohe that year. This appearance at top 4 excited Jonah, and it also heralded the start of a golden era for Wesley College, which has seen 5 national secondary school championships and I believe 10 further All Blacks. In 1990, as the first 15 rugby season got underway, I invited Jonah, the fourth former and age 14, to come to training. He agreed, and this became his first taste of rugby. This wasn't easy for him, and like so much in Jonah's life, he had to overcome a number of significant challenges. The first such challenge was the indignation of the senior rugby players who wondered how a fourth former could suddenly appear at a first 15 training without having done the rugby hard yards over their junior school years. This took a little bit of managing, but we got there. And then as a fourth former, who was 1 metre 90 tall and 93 kilograms, Jonah became lock of the Wesley College first 15. He played all 21 games that year. The 1990 first 15 went on to win the national championship against Gisborne Boys High School in the top 4 final held in Invercargill. Jonah, for most commentators at that game, was considered man of the match and scored the match-winning try. Immediately after top 4, Jonah went off to the North Island under-15 tournament for Wesley, which Wesley won, and he made the North Island under-16 team. Jonah's rugby career was underway. As coach, I also have to admit to not seeing Jonah as anything other than a forward. It did not occur to me there was a superstar wing in the making. Although, as I will explain shortly, during his later first 15 games for Wesley, he was known to roam the back line and pop up in unstoppable positions, anywhere from first 5 to wing. I left Wesley in 1991 after the rugby season to take up my current position at Rotorua Boys High School. In 1993, as coach of the unbeaten Rotorua Boys first 15, we travelled to Wesley to play Jonah's first 15, and we were pretty confident. So too was Jonah. The Wesley College first 15 defeated Rotorua Boys that day decisively, giving our team their only loss of the season. In that game, Jonah scored 5 tries. He scored the 5th almost at my feet, given my preference to stand on the dead ball line whilst coaching. As he scored that 5th try, he looked up at me and said, "Sir, I know you would have wanted me to play well today." I replied to him, "There was no need to play that well." That was 1993. The next year, 1994, Jonah made his first-class rugby debut for counties. He played for New Zealand Colts. He played for New Zealand Sevens in Hong Kong, and he became the youngest ever All Black in the Test matches against France. And as they say, the rest is history. So a troubled young man, embraced by a school, challenged by rugby, and fueled by a positive attitude, and with high expectations of himself, he was able to turn weaknesses and challenges into incredible strengths. Even after his playing career was affected and in time curtailed by his medical condition, which was diagnosed within 2 years of leaving high school, he was able to build a spectacular, game-changing playing career and provide inspiration to so many on so many fronts. He was able to live his power within mantra. From time to time over Jonah's playing career, I would send him a message after an important game, and I would simply say, "Too big, too fast, too much." In the foreword, Jonah asked me to write to his biography. I too finished with those same words. So thank you, Jonah Tali Lomu. It has been a privilege. And for the last time, too big, too fast, too much. Thank you.
Chris Grinder, what a wonderful speech, Chris. Thank you for your influence over Jonah's life. As Chris was speaking, we were getting shots of the crowd, and there are so many All Blacks, so many great All Blacks here today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your support of Jonah, Nadine and the boys, and the families. Thank you for being here. It's lovely to see you amongst us. Right, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, Jonah loved music. He loved it loud, and he loved it lots. In his cars, his sound systems were legendary. Nadine is nodding at me. In his headphones, it was full noise everywhere. And in honour of that and in tribute to Jonah, we're now going to introduce the first of our special musical guests this afternoon. Adees, like Jonah himself, are Southside boys. First signed to the great South Auckland label Dawn Raid over a decade ago. That first album, Always and For Real, went double platinum and won them an audience that included everyone from Helen Clark to Jonah himself. It's so good to have Viz and Naines and the band here today to play a song for Jonah that's been chosen by Nadine. Ladies and gentlemen, Adees.
Was meant You're the inspiration. You bring feeling to my life. You're the inspiration. I want to have you near me. I want to have you hear me say that. No one needs you more than I need you.
These, ladies and gentlemen, and band, and the greatest flag waving I've ever seen from a crowd. It's magnificent. An appreciative round of applause for the people here today from the families. In the days since Jonah died, we have seen some wonderful friends speaking for him, handling the media, caring for the family, and displaying precisely the kind of generosity of spirit that Jonah himself has been celebrated for. By Bernard, by Chris, by everyone who will tell you about Jonah, will tell you a story of his kindness and generosity. Well, in the past few days, Michael Jones, Dylan Meeker, Kirk Manahira, John Hart, Roni Clark, many people, so many good people have stepped up to speak on Jonah's behalf and speak on the family's behalf. Thank you all, you fine men. John Hart has been the family's first and foremost spokesperson, facing the world on behalf of the people who loved Jonah best and who have lost the most with his passing. The former All Black coach knew Jonah well, of course. He was coach when Jonah's terrible illness was first diagnosed. Tough times. No one knew what to make of it, and Jonah was so brave and so determined to overcome it. And so absolutely determined not to let the world think that this could get him down. And John was with him through that time, and he is with us now as a principal speaker today. Ladies and gentlemen, John Hart.
Thank you, John. Today is my privilege to speak on behalf of Nadine, Brayley and Darrell, Merv and Lois Quirk, Jonah's mum Happy and the late Simisi, and their children John, Uli, Tanaloa, Sella and Irene. Firstly, on the family's behalf, we would like to thank the government, the Auckland City Council, Eden Park, New Zealand Rugby, and the many organisations and individuals who've helped put on the special Remembering Jonah celebration. The family would also like to thank the thousands of people, both here and abroad, who've sent messages of love and support to Jonah. And a special thank you to you, Bernard, to travel from France to come here particularly. You have honoured the family. New Zealand says thank you to you. Today we celebrate the all too short life of a great New Zealander who by his actions on and off the field became rugby's first global superstar. His youth, so aptly covered by Chris, did not see Jonah play his first game of rugby until the age of 15. Just 3 years later, out of Wesley College in 1994, He was representing New Zealand on the international stage in sevens in Hong Kong. And the incredible fact, 3 months later, with only 4 first-class games to be played, was playing on the wing for the All Blacks in his debut against France. But it was 1995 at the Rugby World Cup in South Africa when All Black coach Laurie Mains launched Jonah on to the international stage. Who will ever forget his magical performances in the qualifying rounds, followed by his brilliant 4-try blitz of England in the semi-final at Cape Town, including the demolition of Michael Catt. There is no doubt that Jonah's performance at that Rugby World Cup and his huge popularity in South Africa was the catalyst for the game turning professional later that year. Rugby World Cups were very special for Jonah, but sadly it was a trophy that eluded him. He surely deserved to have a Rugby World Cup medal to put beside his sevens gold medal that he won in the Commonwealth Games in Kuala Lumpur in 1998. He saved his best for World Cups. His performance in '95 was matched by his outstanding contribution in the Rugby World Cup in '99. Who will ever forget his blistering length of the field try, leaving several Englishmen in his wake at Twickenham, and the 2 dynamic tries he scored against France in the semi-final, once again at Twickenham. His record number of 15 tries scored in only 11 matches at Rugby World Cups was only equalled just this year by the great South African winger Brian Habana. And Brian had a chance in the last game to go ahead of Jonah. He dropped the ball 3 times with the line in sight. I still think fate was smiling that he did not want to take the Giants' record. And in reflecting on the many great Jonah moments, it was perhaps very fitting that he scored the last-minute try to give the All Blacks that dramatic 39-35 win over Australia in Sydney in 2000 in a game called by many the Test match of the century. Power, pace, skill and grace were all part of the Gentle Giant's array of talents. In a career sadly shortened by his tragic kidney disease, he played in excess of 200 first-class matches, including matches for his beloved counties Manukau, the Blues, the Chiefs, the Hurricanes, Wellington, North Harbour and Cardiff Blues. His final test was against Wales in Cardiff on the 23rd of November 2002. In all, he played 73 matches for the All Blacks, including 63 tests, and scored 43 tries in the black jersey. As the Governor-General, His Excellency Sir Jerry Mataparai, said so eloquently on Saturday, there has never been a player like Jonah, and there will never be another like him. But the most remarkable aspect of Jonah's career is that throughout the time he was playing for the All Blacks, he was suffering from a serious and worsening kidney disease. Operating at a maximum at any one time of 80% physical capacity, he mesmerized the world. It is frightening to think what he could have done on the field had he not played virtually all of his career with a huge medical handbrake. First diagnosed in late 1995, it was clear by 96 that he had a serious and worsening kidney condition. Clear perhaps to Jonah and his family and his doctor and very special friend John Mayhew, but not to the rest of the world. Jonah did not want anyone to know, including his All Black coach at the time, nor his teammates, as he'd never wanted to use his illness as an excuse. It was 1997 that finally Jonah's illness became public, when he had to step down from the game for 6 months intensive medical treatment under the direction of John Mayhew and celebrated renal physician Professor Ian Simpson. To theirs and Jonah's great credit, Jonah re-emerged as an All Black later that year, playing in 4 tests on our end-of-year tour. The family would like me particularly to pay tribute to John Mayhew for the wonderful care and friendship he showed Jonah for the past 20 years. John and Jonah were very close. John, you, Sue, and your family played a special role in Jonah's life. By 2003, Jonah's condition had deteriorated to the extent he was on dialysis and awaiting a kidney transplant. In 2004, he was given a second chance at life when an angel in the form of Grant Kiriyama came along. Grant donated his kidney to Jonah, and on the 27th of July 2004, the successful transplant took place. Grant, who is with us today, the family and the wider community will always be very grateful for your generosity in supporting your friend. Unfortunately, Jonah's condition regressed in recent years, and for the last 4 years he's been on regular dialysis treatment until his sudden passing just 12 days ago. There have been many tributes paid to Jonah as both a rugby player and a person. He was humble, very shy of the adulation he received, always giving of his time to sign every last autograph for any child that asked, and always putting others before himself. He overcame tremendous hurdles throughout his life, but never ever complained. He was a fighter until the very end. In particular, he loved children, and he became renowned for the work he has done in supporting children's charities both here at home and abroad. At the time of his death, Jonah was the patron of Kidney Kids and an ambassador for UNICEF. Both organisations represented here today record their sincere thanks to Jonah and offer their condolences to you, Nadine, and family. Jonah and Nadine were working on a dream to create a lasting legacy by growing academies around the world to assist and develop underprivileged children. A dream we hope will come to fruition in the future. Jonah loved his family, adored Nadine and his 2 boys. He told me at a dinner we had together just prior to going to the World Cup that his greatest joy was watching Brayley and Darrell grow up. He told me his greatest fear was that he might not live long enough to see that happen. He was a great dad. His kids adored him. Brayley and Darrell, your dad will always be by your side. Jonah Tali Lomu, a special New Zealander. Richie McCaw, at his recent retirement announcement, paid a special tribute to Jonah from one great All Black to another when he said that Jonah was possibly even bigger overseas than he was here in New Zealand. Will there ever be another New Zealander whose sudden passing hits CNN breaking news, who receives an obituary in the New York Times, whose passing was recorded on the front page of major newspapers around the world, and who has had superstar and legendary figures of sport, stage and politics around the world expressing their respect and condolences. But perhaps the Queen, in her personal message to Nadine just last week, says it all when she says, "It was a pleasure for her to meet Jonah, a figure of great inspiration to so many, and that his loss would be keenly felt around the world, but especially in New Zealand and the Pacific Islands. The boy from Mangere, of humble beginnings, raised in Tonga and New Zealand, left his huge footprint around the world." In closing, may I pay a personal tribute to Michael Jones and Dylan Meeker for the outstanding work they've done in supporting the Quirk and Lomu families in this immensely difficult time. I know there are many others that have stood by, but your efforts have been amazing. To everyone here today, and to everyone watching wherever you may be in the world, the family would like to thank you all for your presence and for sharing their loss with them. Nadine, Brayley, Darrell, Merv and Lois, Happy, Uli, John, Talaloa, Stella and Irene, and your extended families, we all share your loss and you have our deepest sympathies. Jonah, you were many things to many people. You were a freak on the field and a gentle, caring giant off it. A loving husband, dad, son, and brother. But most of all, you were a lovely, lovely man. Officially, we salute All Black number 941. But to the world, you will be known as the All Black who made number 11 his own. Rest in peace, my friend.
John Hart, beautiful words, John. Thank you. Thank you for your care and support of Jonah's family over the past 12 days and Jonah himself over the past 2 decades. Lots of nods from Happy and Merv down there. They really appreciate it, John. They really appreciate your love. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for Eric Rush. Eric and Jonah were great friends, but more than that, Eric seems to have been pivotal in a way in shaping Jonah's rugby life. They met at a touch tournament in 1991. Jonah had just turned 16. Who is that? Rushy thought. Like Will Carling in 1995, Rushy knew a rugby freak when he saw one. And he instantly invited this kid from Mangere into a sevens tournament in Singapore. Jonah went. The journey had begun. Then in 1994, the entire rugby world said, "Who is that?" After Jonah made such an extraordinary impact at the Hong Kong Seven tournament. Rushy was in the team with Jonah, smiling as the world caught on. In 1998, the pair won gold together in the sevens at the Commonwealth Games. And when the Canterbury Bulldogs came after Jonah, back before professionalism, when leaving rugby for league was a big and definitive thing, Rushy was the man charged with talking Jonah out of it. He succeeded, as we all know, and the wonder began almost immediately. Eric Rush, it is really wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you, JC. Malo lelei, tēnā koutou katoa, talofa lava, greetings everybody. It's a great honour to be up here today to speak on behalf of Jonah's rugby mates, and there's a lot of us here today. Whenever me and the big fella got together, we used to take the mickey out of each other, and that's not going to change today. So I'm going to tell a few stories about the big fella, and I hope he doesn't sit up. But anyway, I first met Jonah out at Wesley. I got invited to a rugby training out there, and all I saw was this big man-child running around, having fun with his mates. And, you know, he was 6'5". I think he was only about 115 kgs at that time. But he was just a beast. And I remember thinking, geez, this guy's not bad. And then I met him playing touch at the Weymouth Rugby Club. And I wasn't the fastest winger around, but I was faster than Glenn Osborne. So I wasn't exactly slow. And I saw this big fella marking me, and I had a go at him on the outside a couple of times. And he was just jogging beside me, smiling as he caught me. And I thought, far out, this guy's not bad, all right? And I went up to him after the game. I said, mate, you played pretty good touch. Have you ever played sevens? He said, nah. I said, oh, we've got a bit of a sevens team, and you're keen to have a crack? Yeah. I said, mate, we're off to Singapore in a few weeks. You want to come? Sweet. It's pretty much the extent of his vocabulary back then, you know. So we took him up to the Cook Island Sevens and the Singapore Sevens, and he made the New Zealand team the very next year. And, you know, it was just a freak right from the start. And, you know, the first time we played in Hong Kong, his idol was David Campese. And he just talked about Campo the whole time. And when Campo came up to meet him in Hong Kong, he actually greeted Jonah by name. And Jonah was being the cool guy, you know. He's just, oh, hey, bro, didn't smile or nothing. As soon as Campo left, man, this big smile come up, bro, he knows my name. And by the end of that weekend, he knew his name all right, because Jonah ran over him, around him, and right through him. So after the game, Campo come up to him and said, who the hell was that big, well, it's sort of that large, dark person, I'll put it in those words, but he says the sooner he goes away, the better. But anyway, as I got to know the big fella, it's sort of like he was two different people, because he was an absolute beast on the field, you know, especially when I knew he was going to play well when the nostrils started flaring up. And I always used to make fun of him. I said no one could catch him, because whenever the nostrils flared up, he took all the oxygen and no one had anything else to catch him. So as soon as I knew those fossils were flaring, man, we were away, we were on it. But you know, he was just such a humble guy and such a beast on the field. But off the paddock, you know, he was such a humble, respectful, generous. You know, I'm glad he had managers over the years, because that fellow would have ended up with nothing, because he'd give it all away. And, you know, he was just a lovely guy. And he's just a typical island boy, I guess. That's how they're brought up, you know, to be respectful. And Michael Jones told me there's an old Polynesian saying, it's better to walk into a room, sit at the back, and be asked to go to the front, than to go into the room, sit at the front, and be told to get to the back. So anytime there's a group thing, all the brown fellows will always be at the back, because it's not cool to be out the front. And Jonah was one of those fellas, definitely. He was definitely one of those guys. But, you know, I had the great fortune to travel to all the islands, Cook Islands, Samoa, Fiji, Tonga. And the Pacific Islanders are the friendliest people in the world until the whistle goes. and then it's watch out, mate, because I think the only way I used to get the big fella up for games, I only learned 2 Tongan words, apart from the bad ones. But the only words you had to say to him was tamatei, which loosely translated means gill him. So he was a pretty easy fellow to motivate just quietly. Jonah was, you know, I had obviously a lot to do with him. We did a lot of training in all the fields around South Auckland. There was a love-hate relationship. I loved training. He loved the Manukau City food court. But we did it. And that's one thing that a lot of people said Jonah was never fit enough. I disagree with that, because whenever he played, he never let anybody down through fitness. And he always came to training, and he was always ready to take the challenge on. And that's one thing about this fella. He was never scared of a challenge. And, you know, some of those training runs I know definitely hurt him. It was about this time that the cars started coming into his life, and Phil used to have kittens about all the cars this fella started collecting. And his best mate at the time was this little Asian fella called Arnie. He was his best mate. Arnie used to soup up the cars, and Jonah used to put the sounds in them. And that big green truck of his, man, far out. You come and pick you up, you got to drive along with your fingers in your ears like this, and your shoes going like this. And he's nodding away in the bloody hell. I hated going for rides with that fella. But, he also had a bit of a stubborn streak. I'm sure Nadine will agree with this. And everybody who knows him, Happy, I'm sure she knows this too. But when he had his mind set against something, you didn't try and talk him around because it was very, very hard work. And, but the thing is, you didn't tell Jonah to do anything. If you asked him, he'd run through a brick wall for you. And, when Laurie became the All Black coach and selected Jonah at the start, those two never got on very well at all. Because Jonah didn't know how to talk to this southern man, this Palangi fellow from down the South Island. And Laurie Mains didn't know how to talk to a young island boy from the south side. So I kind of became the go-between between the two of them for many of their conversations. So Laurie would tell me what he wanted to know. I'll go and ask Jonah, get the answer, go back, tell Laurie. And for some reason in All Blacks, Laurie wouldn't let us eat eggs. And one morning, it was before one of the trials, before the 95 World Cup, the coaches all went to the gym. So we're in the breakfast room and the boys are just going for it, man. We're eating anything we like. And Jonah had this French stick, this baguette, and he had 16 boiled eggs in it. And he was eating it like this, and he was taking, someone was taking photos of him. And anyway, Laurie Mains come walking back into the breakfast room, and he went through the roof. He comes over to me, he says, "What the bloody hell is he eating now?" And I'm just having my Weet-Bix, man. I'm just trying to stay in the team, And he says, "You bloody well get over there and tell him to think about what he's eating." So I went over to Jonah. I says, "Mate, Laurie's a bit angry about what you're eating." He says to me, "You go tell him to go get hard." I'm looking back at Laurie. He's waiting for the answer. I walked back over. I said, "Oh, he said he's just about finished." So, it was pretty rocky at the start. But by the end of that year, Laurie Mains in his last test match was carried off the field on the shoulders of all the players. And Jonah was one of those fellas who carried him off. So they came a very long way and a great respect and friendship. And, it never happened to an All Black coach since. But to be fair to this year's All Blacks, it's a pretty hard ask to get Steve Hansen up on shoulders. But anyway, life wasn't easy being Jonah Lomu. And, I had the privilege, and a lot of the guys who played and a lot of the boys are here today, they saw it up close. In New Zealand, we love getting our people up onto that pedestal. But as soon as they get there, we love nothing better than chopping them down. And unfortunately for Jonah, he was at the top of that tree for a long time. And I saw some things that happened behind, away from the cameras, that it was pretty tough stuff. And, I really felt sorry for Joe. He was... He was loved by people, but there was always someone out there who wanted to have a go at him. And I saw all that stuff. So as a consequence, he was actually a very private man. He kept his friends and his family very close. And for the most famous rugby player in the world, I also believe he was one of the loneliest rugby players in the world too. Because he only had a very few close friends and his family. And that was the reason. That all changed when Nadine came along and gave him his two sons. All of us mates, when those boys came along, man, we got brushed. We got brushed big time. We had nothing to do with us, and that was great because, it was the first time I seen a real joy in him. And as Hardy said just before me, it's just the real tragedy of his death is that he's not going to see these young fellas grow up. But Nadine, I just want you to know that I've been around the fella a long time, and this is the happiest I've seen him. It's the happiest I've ever seen that fella. So I know he's gone, but I don't know he'll be looking down over you and the boys, and all the mates and family will be there to help as well. So you are not alone. Jonah feared no man, but he did fear one person, and that was his mum, Happy. Because he was the Jandor. I think that he's still scarred from the Jandor hippies. But when his mum said things, that he acted. He didn't listen to anyone else but his mum. And to you and to Missy and your sons and daughters, I just want to thank all of the Lomus for sharing your son, not just with New Zealand, with the whole world. And you know, it must have been hard for you guys because everyone wanted a piece of the big fella. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your son with us. Jonah reached heights on the football field that never been seen before. And you know, it's hard to imagine anybody reaching those heights ever again. I'm sure someone will come along one day and it's going to be a great sight to see because the benchmark's been set pretty high. He was an inspiration to a whole generation of kids growing up in this country and across the world. And not just in rugby either. You know, I think there's still another whole generation of Julian Savers and Joseph Parkers and Manu Vatuvais and Valerie and Stephen Adams. There's a whole generation of kids still to be inspired by this guy. He was feted the world over, probably more so overseas than here in New Zealand, as Hardy said too. And the best part about this fella was he did it all without the slightest hint of arrogance or ego. You know, when the Dallas Cowboys came knocking, and it was a big contract. He showed me that contract. It was a lot of money. And he turned it down. I said, why'd you turn it down, man? He said, oh, it's only money. It's not everything. I said, money's not everything, but it's right up there with oxygen, bro. You do need it, you know. And that's a lot of oxygen, brother. That's a lot of oxygen. But, you know, all he said to me was, you know, I just want to play rugby with my mates and I want to play in that black jersey for as long as I can. And that's the reason why he stayed with football. So, you know, he's going to be remembered as a colossus on the football field, no doubt about that. But I'm going to remember him as a good mate. And most importantly, a loving dad. To Joey, on behalf of all your mates that are here today, brother, we're just blessed. We're just blessed to be a part of your amazing journey, mate. And we're going to miss you, big man. We're definitely going to miss you. So rest in peace, brother. Kia ora. Thank you.
Eric Rush, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. It's a rare and unique ability to make people laugh and feel incredible joy on an occasion such as this. But the end was a reminder also of how sad this is. So, thank you, Rushy, for lifting us and for making us appreciate and cherish Jonah and for making us smile. It was beautiful to see lots of players, lots of bosses, Steve Chu, Graham Henry, John Kerwin, Ian Jones, Craig Innes, Olo Brown, Josh Kronfeld with the world's worst ever moustache. Lots of people smiling as you spoke, Rushy. Thank you. Jonah loved his family, his community, his mates like Rushy, his rugby and his music, and he was often asked what he listened to as he came and went from the world's rugby ground so famously, so memorably, with those gigantic headphones on. Eventually, the answer was provided on a compilation CD. Like everything Jonah did, it went gold when it was released. And it contained some of music's greats. It contained Bob Marley, Barry White, LL Cool J, but they only had one song each on Jonah's CD. Adija had two songs. And they're going to play, Adija first formed in 1979, unbelievable, when Jonah was 4. And they're going to play one of the two songs that Jonah put on his compilation CD because he loved it and he chose it at the time, and it is beautifully apt for today. Ladies and gentlemen, Adija. Adisha, fantastic. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, now after a song that contained the refrain, I love you, so beautifully sung, some words to Jonah's wife, Nadine. Nadine, we all feel a great sense of loss today. We all feel we have lost someone special, and we have. But your life was with Jonah. And on this very public occasion, yours is a deep and personal grief for a husband, a soulmate, and the father of your two fine sons. Nadine, thank you for sharing him with us one last time. Hepi, Jonah's mum, with Jonah's uncle sitting proudly beside you, thank you for sharing your brilliant boy with the world one last time. Thank you, Hepi. Nadine and Hepi, Brayley and Darrell, the Quirks and the Lomus, our Jonah was first and foremost your Jonah. And we know how much you must all be hurting today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Jonah Lomu, 63 tests, 37 tries, the kind of sportsmanship and humility that defies numbers and is better than numbers. Countless autographs, countless selfies, and how many people in grounds like this and living rooms with the TV or radio on yelling encouragement every time he touched the ball, screaming their delight at Jonah. What a player. And as we've heard so beautifully, what a man. And now it's time to say goodbye. And to do so, a song the family would love you to sing along to if you can. Would you please stand for our final song and then our final prayer. And then Jonah will be taken from this ground he loves so much by Ngāti Whātua and Tainui, by Wesley College, by the All Blacks, by his family, and by the pallbearers, who, as you saw, contain beautiful friends and beautiful teammates. The song is How Great Thou Art, and to lead the singing of it, we are joined with her beautiful voice by Lizzie Marbley. That was beautiful, Lizzie. It was beautiful. And now, with thanks to everyone who has come today, whoever you are and wherever you are from, a final prayer from former All Black Sid Going, President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Hamilton, New Zealand. Sid, it is so wonderful to have you here. Thank you.
Our dear Father in heaven, as we have gathered here today to remember and to reflect upon the many talents that have been displayed by this lovely man, Jonah Lomu, we look at the life that he has shared with each of us throughout the world for the talents that he has displayed. And we recognise also those many Christ-like attributes that he has had in his life, that of love, that of kindness, that of being a good friend. And as we come to the close of this time of reflection, we ask a special spirit and thy blessing to be with his dear wife Nadine and their children, those two little boys who will be missing their daddy. We pray for them and ask for thy spirit to be with her and them, that they may feel of thy love, that they will be at all times helped by good friends to grow over these pains of sorrow, but that they will know that families can be together forever. And we close this time together now and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
So some of Jonah Lomu's teammates, friends, fellow rugby players assemble in front of the stage as the pallbearers arrive. Some very notable figures amongst that group. Dylan Mika, Michael Jones, Frank Bunce, Manu Vatuvei, Jerome Kano, Ronnie Clark. But first now the haka, Poro Pehana, the haka of Wesley College.
Go!
So 3 haka, past pupils of Wesley College. Then the salute from some of Jonah's teammates, accompanied by members of the Blues and the Warriors, and then the haka of the current students of Wesley College. And now the symbolic release of 40 doves. So 40 doves take to the skies above Eden Park. The dove, the symbol of love and peace, greatly symbolic on this day when we pay tribute to a man who was much loved and who is now at peace. A song from the school that was already remarkable, but made world famous by Jonah Lomu, Wesley College. And so now, the great man about to leave Eden Park for the last time. So the car driven past the youngsters, including the pupils of Favona, one of the star performers this afternoon. So just 20 years after he became rugby's first truly global superstar, he leaves us, but he will leave behind his own legacy and he will live on in our hearts and our minds. Thank you for joining us. Can we leave you with a famous Tongan proverb? Tonga mo'onga kihe lotu. My will and spirit is higher than any mountain. Jonah Lomu had many mountains to climb and climb them he did. May he rest now. May Jonah rest in peace.